So good evening everyone, this is Dr. Vineet Sehgal and welcome to this image-based clinical scenario special class. So basically what we would do in this session, I would be basically putting some image-based questions which are clinical questions. So there are two parts of this session, okay? So first thing is I would post an image for you, and with that I would post a clinical scenario with 4 options. You have to try to answer these questions, and as soon as you answer it, I would be basically sending you the various hints and how to solve these clinical based questions. Do you get my point? So basically, this session would be more useful for those students who have at least one reading of ophthalmology and they are okay with the basic concepts of the ophthalmology, but they want some extra edge over your peers and they want to solve the image based questions as well as clinical based questions. So before I start the class, this is the compulsory voice and the audio check. Am I audible, everyone? Okay, some issues with the voice. So let me restart the, can you see the slides now? So just give me a minute. I would be just restarting the slides, doing a refresh. Usually because there are heavy rains in Delhi, so we have some issues with the net connection. So that's maybe the cause of the lagging of the voice. I'm just doing the refresh. Give me a minute. Okay, fair enough. Give me just a minute so that I see the speed of my connection. Okay, is the voice clear now? A bit better? Okay, so let's start the clinical based session today. I am your ophthalmology educator, Dr. Vineet Sehgal. I have done my fellowship in glaucoma and done my post graduation from AIIMS. I'm the Unacademy educator since 2018 and head consultant glaucoma Sharpsight Group of Eye Hospitals. You can download the Unacademy learning app from the Google Play Store as well as from the iOS platform. And today we would be talking about the image-based questions. So remember, great things never come from your comfort zone. You have to get out from your comfort zone and then ignite the spirit in you, and definitely you would all be successful there. So my first question for you is, a patient post-trauma came with the following OCT picture and there is a diminution of central vision. What is your most probable diagnosis? Try to answer. So I would be telling you how to solve these questions also. So welcome everyone who have joined the class. This is Dr. Vineet Sehgal and we are doing the first question of the image-based clinical scenarios today. So is the poll visible to all of you? Fair enough. I would be having a 30 seconds for each question. So the answer here is C, that is macular hole. So this is a picture. This is a OCT picture, optical coherence tomography. And if you can see in the center of the optical coherence tomography, there is a total missing layers. Okay. So what I call this, I call it macular hole. There was some confusion and Dr. Chehek asked me, what is this? So this is just a vitreous opacity. Okay. Do not have to basically get confused because of that. This is a patient who is suffering from macular hole. Now, how to solve these types of questions? Okay. So whenever you are seeing these type of questions, you see what are the hints given here. First hint that is given here is the patient is a post-trauma patient. Okay. The second hint you are getting here is diminution of central vision. Remember, central serous retinopathy is not a complication of a trauma. The complications of trauma in the macula can be Berlin's edema, okay, where you would get a cherry red spotted macula, where the anatomy of the macular layers would be normal. Macular hole, you would have central layers that would be missing. So your answer here is C, that is the macular hole. Is it clear, everyone? Why the answer is macular hole? So always see the clinical hints and then see the figure, then see the options. 99% of the time you would be able to answer these questions. Okay, so this is a picture of a wet ARMD. If you can see here, this is the macular area. In the macular area, if you can appreciate this area is having a hyperpigmented scar. Okay, can you all see? Give me a thumbs up. So this is a hyperpigmented scar here, and the corresponding OCT picture, if you can appreciate this layer, the hyperreflectile layer which you are seeing, this is the RPE. Okay, Dr. Raj, this is the RPE, and you are seeing this is an elevation of a RPE by something funny that is coming from beneath the RPE. Okay, that is the Bruch's membrane of the choroid. Choroid की layer है यहाँ पर RPE के नीचे जहां से vessels जा रही हैं. So this is a new vessels which are basically coming from the Bruch's membrane and then elevating the RPE. Okay, this is a wet ARMD. I also call it choroidal neovascular membrane. If anyone wants me to explain in Hindi also, you can write it in the comment section. I am totally comfortable on giving few explanation in Hindi also. I can do that also. Okay. Okay. So the next question we have is a 25-year-old intern. Okay, came to the OPD with central diminution of vision of acute onset. He admitted taking steroids and is also anxious about his NEET PG results. OCT picture was shown here. What is your probable diagnosis? Try to answer. So is the poll visible? So the answer here is B, that is central serous retinopathy. Now, please see this picture. What are the various hints given here? The first hint that is given here is it is a 25-year-old patient. Okay. Remember, a central serous retinopathy is there typically in young males. Okay. The second hint that you are getting is central diminution of vision. So definitely there would be a macular involvement. The third hint that is given here is steroids, which is a risk factor for the development of central serous retinopathy. And fourth thing that you are getting here is the patient is anxious. So it is seen more in the type A personality. So even if the OCT picture would not have given here, your diagnosis should be coming towards your central serous retinopathy. Are you getting my point, Aisha, Tasur, Raj? Okay. So how to appreciate this? If you can see this picture, you are seeing where I have put a arrow. There is a black space here. Okay. So this is a fluid filled cavity, or I would say serous detachment of the fovea, or I can call it foveal detachment. Is it clear, Dr. Ashi? So you are having a detachment of the fovea, and this fluid is between the RPE and the rest of the layers of retina. Okay, the rest 9 layers of retina. Remember, we have the 10 layers of RPE. Okay, so it is the fluid accumulation, Puneet, between the retinal pigment epithelium and the rest of the layers of the retina, neurosensory retina. Okay, so this is a OCT picture. Okay, a optical coherence tomography picture, and this is basically showing you a central serous retinopathy. Another name of that is serous foveal detachment. Is it clear, Aisha? Okay, now why this is not a drusen? Remember another word, drusen. drusen, as you all know, DR goes with DR. Okay, so drusen is basically seen in dry ARMD. What happens in drusen is that there is elevation of the RP. Okay, you have the deposits beneath the RP that are drusens. Here in central serous retinopathy, you have the collection of fluid between the RPE and the neurosensory retina. Okay, so this is a central serous retinopathy. You do not need to treat this patient. You just counsel the patient to avoid stress, avoid steroids. 99% of the patients resolve on itself. So just do wait and watch. Is it clear, Dr. Jamal? Okay, fair enough. So let's move to our next question. A 65-year-old patient came to the OPD with following OCT picture and complains of metamorphosia. What is your most probable diagnosis? So we are going with the OCT series today. Macular hole, ARMD, central serous retinopathy, or cystoid macular edema. I just told you about this OCT right now. So if you can appreciate the normal RPE pattern, this is a normal RPE pattern. This RPE pattern is disturbed here and now it is elevated. Okay, so this patient is basically suffering from a ARMD, age-related macular degeneration. Now remember, just from seeing this question, macular hole, you may get a history of trauma. Central serous retinopathy, not in a 65-year-old patient. So even if you are not having the OCT picture, you always have this in mind that this patient may not be a macular hole and central serous retinopathy. And in cystoid macular edema, basically you have cystic spaces in the retina. So this patient is having a ARMD, and the ARMD, dry ARMD, what is the feature? You get drusens, elevation of RP. Is it clear, Dr. Ajit, Dr. Puneet? Welcome to this session. Okay, so you get this elevation of the RP. Everyone give me a thumbs up if you are able to understand. So this is elevation of retinal pigment epithelium. So this patient is suffering from ARMD. So those students who joined late, welcome Dr. Bismillah. Hints given in this question was 65-year-old patient and complains of metamorphosia. So 3 questions are done till now, Shubham. This is the 3rd question. Okay, so now what is the treatment of ARMD? We have a dry ARMD and a wet ARMD. The dry ARMD, the treatment is you do not have to do much. You can just give some multivitamins to the patient. Okay, and what are the multivitamins used? It was told by the ARED study. It is vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, copper, and zinc oxide. And wet ARMD, you can give in these patients photodynamic therapy, or you can give anti-VEGF injections. Okay, this is the treatment of dry and wet ARMD. So Dr. Bignami, I told you about the wet ARMD when I started the session. Okay, this is a picture of wet ARMD where you are seeing the patch here. Okay, you also need to do a fluorescein angiography to see the leakage of the dye. Okay, but this is not seen in a dry ARMD where you are just seeing some yellowish spots around the fundus. I would just post the image of a dry ARMD also after this session. Okay, okay, let's move to our next question now. And my next question here is, a patient presented with following disc picture with intraocular pressure of 23 millimeter of mercury. Which of the following is not true about this patient? So see, what are the findings in this optic nerve head? So what is your diagnosis here? Okay, so is the pole visible right now? Okay, so definitely in this patient you are having a primary open angle glaucoma. Okay, remember, you would say, sir, why not angle closure glaucoma? You have not given a gonioscopy value here or the gonioscopy details here. So definitely it can be an angle closure glaucoma. But remember, This is a disc hemorrhage. This disc hemorrhage is more common in open angle glaucoma or normal tension glaucoma as compared to a angle closure glaucoma. Okay, so Puneet, see this figure. Okay, so what are the various findings here? The first finding you can see here is this reddish bleeding. Okay, I call it disc hemorrhage. Everyone give me a thumbs up if you are able to understand this. You are seeing a disc hemorrhage here. The second thing which you are seeing is this yellowish area. This yellowish area is called cup. Normal cup disc ratio in an individual is 0.3:1. But, or even up to 0.5:1. Here you are seeing this is the whole disc. So you appreciate here the cup is much larger here. So you are seeing a 0.7 to 0.8:1 ratio. Another thing which you are getting here is that you are getting a vessels going nasally. Okay, this is the temporal side and this is the nasal side. Okay, so vessels going more nasally here. So there is, I call, nasalization of vessels. So all of these are the features of a glaucoma. Is it clear, everyone? Okay, so I know that here the patient is having glaucoma. So let's see various options. PG analog is the drug of choice. Definitely correct. Now PG analogs like latanoprost, bimatoprost, travoprost, they have been considered as the drug of choice. The reason is once a day dose and they decrease the intraocular pressure by maximum around 25 to 30%. The second thing, Ruchika, visual field analysis is done. Why the visual field analysis is done? Because the defects and how much is the glaucoma, the stage of the glaucoma can be told by a Humphrey visual field or a automated perimetry. Okay, so this is why we know visual field defects. If you are seeing a paracentral scotoma, it may be initial stage of scotoma. If you are getting a arcuate scotoma, it can be a large, it can be a deeper, or it can be a more advanced glaucoma. Then MRI head and orbit is essential to rule out retrobulbar mass. Remember, if there is a retrobulbar mass, can anyone give me an example of a retrobulbar mass? So retrobulbar mass is something which is going beneath the or besides the eyeball. Okay, so as very good doctor. Okay, so your name, sorry I can't get your name, but the good doctor, you absolutely told well, it is optic nerve glioma. Okay, or even meningioma. So whenever you have gliomas or meningiomas, you would not get a glaucomatous disc. What you would get is you would get a disc edema. Are you getting my point? So Naveen, you would get a disc edema there, which can finally, as Rakesh told us, can go into a optic atrophy. You would not get a glaucomatous disc. There you need a MRI head and orbit. Okay. Then we have the last option. Sleep apnea is a risk factor. I told you this patient where there is a disc hemorrhage. Okay. These patients are usually having some non-IOP dependent risk factors also, like in a normal tension glaucoma. I'm not saying this patient is a normal tension glaucoma, but these patients who have disc hemorrhage may have some vascular problems also, and diabetes and sleep apnea and migraine are very important risk factors, non-IOP risk factors for glaucoma. Are you getting my point? Okay, so option C is wrong. MRI head and orbit is not done in these patients because this type of feature is not characteristic of any retrobulbar mass. Are you getting my point, Dr. Chehek? Okay, so option C is wrong here. Everyone give me a thumbs up if you are able to understand. So why sleep apnea, sir? So Aisha, I am telling that what are the risk factors for glaucoma? The most important risk factor for glaucoma that you all know is the increased intraocular pressure. Is it clear? Okay. What happens in an increased intraocular pressure is, the good doctor. Okay. So what happens there is a vascular theory and there is a mechanical theory of glaucoma. This increased pressure can cause the damage to the retinal nerve fiber layer and the ganglion cells. Okay. So that may cause the ischemic changes in these cells and they can cause death of these cells. Okay. Now, what are the other risk factors other than increased IOP? The important risk factors for glaucoma, you remember: migraine, diabetics, sleep apnea, and decreased ocular blood flow. Decreased ocular blood flow. So these are other very important risk factors for the patient. And why they also can cause glaucoma? Because they are implicated in decreasing the blood supply to the optic nerve head. Are you getting my point, Dr. Tushar? Dr. Good Doctor? Okay. So let's move to our next question. Okay. So friends, because there are lots of comments going on, I may miss some question, but please be assured I have the Facebook channels, the Telegram app, and various other modes of contact. You can directly ask the questions in any of my group. Okay. But still, I would try to answer maximum of your queries. Okay. So next question is not true in a patient presented with this condition. So first of all, what is this condition looking like? Okay. Is the pole visible? Remember, the option B was here, Descemet's membrane. Okay. So what is the diagnosis here? Can anyone tell me? Is the pole visible right now? Okay. So what is the diagnosis here first? If you are able to get the diagnosis, you would be able to answer the question. So this was one of my patient who presented with the feature like this. If you can see a whitish band over the cornea. Now can you answer the question? A whitish band over the cornea. Okay, this is not a limbus. Okay, remember Naveen, pingicula you would see over the conjunctiva. This is the whitish band over the cornea. So very good everyone, this is a band shaped keratopathy. Okay, this is a band shaped keratopathy. And remember, whenever we talk about band shaped keratopathy, the deposition is of which crystals? It is deposition of calcium hydroxyapatite crystals. And remember, B goes with B. So it is seen in your Bowman's membrane and not in your Descemet's membrane. Okay, so the answer here was B. It is not seen in Bowman's membrane, it is seen in your Descemet's membrane. Whenever you have a band-shaped keratopathy, to basically remove the calcium, what you do is you do a EDTA chelation. What the EDTA chelation does is it basically removes the calcium from your Bowman's membrane and your epithelium. Okay, so you can treat this patient just by doing a EDTA chelation. Now, in which type of patients you are getting more of a band-shaped keratopathy? The causes of BSK. Can anyone tell me? What are the causes of band-shaped keratopathy? It was a last year's question. So remember, the first important thing is I told you it is there when there is a deposition of calcium. So as Chehek told us, any patient who is having a hypercalcemia, Okay, so it may be something which is related to any disturbance of parathyroid hormone. Okay, even in the some cases of sarcoidosis, the patient may have a band shaped keratopathy. Most commonly it is seen in ocular disorders. And what are the various ocular disorders? Chronic inflammatory disorders. Chronic inflammatory, like your chronic uveitis. Okay, can anyone tell me other causes? Remember, in post-vitreoretinal surgeries, we use a silicone oil to give a tamponade. This silicone oil can come in the anterior chamber also, and when this silicone oil comes in the anterior chamber, it can attract the calcium crystals over it. Okay, so silicone oil post vitreoretinal surgery is considered as the most common cause of band shaped keratopathy. The next thing is, sometimes even in the patients who have got a last stage eye disease, I call it shrunken eye, or I call it atrophic bulbi. In that cases also, because of the chronic inflammation, the patients may have a band shaped keratopathy. Is it clear, everyone? So this is a patient of band shaped keratopathy. And remember, a band shaped keratopathy, B goes with B. Okay, so you have deposition in Bowman's membrane. Okay, you can just also remember like a BC. Okay, Bowman's membrane, calcium. Okay, so let's move to the next question. A patient presented with acute inflammation of eye with following clinical picture. What is your most probable diagnosis? Try to answer. Is the pole visible? I think is the pole visible, my friends? So sorry for the erratic net connection. We have got a very heavy rains, and I think my net connection is getting a bit slow also here. So if you can appreciate, in this patient, there is a inflammation of the lower eyelid. Okay, so you can see these are the two different patients. This patient is having a acute pain, and this patient is having a no pain. Okay, do not confuse figure 1 with figure 2 here. Figure 1 is basically telling us there is a acute inflammation. Okay, and this is what we call stye. Okay, it is the inflammation of Zeiss glands. Yes, check, it is external hordeolum. Okay, option C was external hordeolum here. Okay, it is stye or external hordeolum. And here you have a non-tender nodule over the upper lid. This patient is having a chalazion. Okay, so remember, acute inflammation you have stye, and in a chronic inflammation, no pain, you have chalazion. External hordeolum of stye is the inflammation of Zeiss glands, and internal hordeolum and chalazion is the inflammation of your meibomian glands. Okay, that is how you can differentiate between these two. Let's move to the next question. Post cataract surgery, patient presented with the pain and redness and ultrasound picture like this. What is not true regarding this patient? Is the pole visible now? Okay, let me see if I have any friends. I hope all of you are there in the Unacademy Telegram app or in the Facebook page. So I am also there. If you have, I think Chahak have asked a question there today regarding the myotonic dystrophy. So if you want to ask any question regarding ophthalmology, you can ask there. And if you want any of the free classes, you can also ask me there. I have 25 hours this month only for the free classes to all of you. Okay. Okay. Let's answer this question. So what is this patient suffering from? So now you see what are the hints given in this question. Always see the hints given in the question. Post cataract surgery, patient is having pain and redness. So what the patient is suffering from, as Raj told us, the patient is suffering from endophthalmitis. Okay, inflammation of all the uveal tissue and the vitreous exudates. So if you can appreciate here, you see some dusting and haziness in this chamber. Okay, this is basically the area of vitreous. Okay, and you are seeing haziness or exudates in the vitreous. So this patient is suffering from endophthalmitis. Now let's see what are the various options here. Oral steroids is the drug of choice in this condition. Remember, never ever. Okay, what you have, the drug of choice in these patients, this is not even intravitreal steroids, it is intravitreal antibiotics. Are you getting my point, everyone? Give me a thumbs up. So it is the intravitreal antibiotics which is the treatment of choice. What you do here is from 4 millimeter from the limbus, this is your cornea, 4 millimeter from your limbus, you insert the antibiotics with the help of a 30 gauge needle in a syringe in the vitreous cavity. This is the intravitreal antibiotics. If the patient is not responding to the intravitreal antibiotics, then you can go for a pars plana vitrectomy. Okay, steroids are not used in these conditions. Is it clear, Rakesh? Okay, now let's see what are the ultrasound features. If you can see this area, this is your retina. Okay, this line which you are seeing, this is your retina. Beneath the retina we have the choroid. If you can see this shadow, this black shadow, this area, this is optic nerve head shadow. Okay, and this black area which you are seeing, this is the vitreous cavity. Okay, so whenever we talk about the ultrasound B scan, what is the meaning of B here? B means there is brightness scan. Okay, so where you see various colors and various shades of gray and white. Now when you have a B scan, you always in the same machine have A scan also. What is the meaning of A? A means, very good Avinash, welcome to the session. It is the amplitude scan. Amplitude, can you see these spikes? Okay, so this spike which you can see, this is because of the lens, and this spike which you are seeing, this is because of the coats of eye. Okay, so you can have this area where you are having no spikes because this area is filled with the vitreous cavity. If you are seeing small spikes here, so this means there may be dusting of the vitreous cavity. If you see large spikes there, you can have a calcification or mass there. Is it clear, Dr. Rakesh? So this is how you can interpret a USG B scan. I would just show you some examples also. Okay, so this is a patient, let's say a 2-year-old patient who presented with leukocoria, and the patient is having a ultrasound picture like this. What is your probable diagnosis? My question is, a 2-year-old child presented with leukocoria and a USG picture like this. So this is a very big mass you are seeing in a vitreous cavity. You would ask me, Mona, that sir, why it is not haziness? You said that one area, you said vitreous exudates. Now you are saying it is a mass. How can we differentiate? First thing is, you are seeing more whitening here. This gray scale and this gray scale, you are almost seeing equal. So it is a high density. Okay, Aisha? Now, second thing, very important is you are seeing the A scan here. See the spikes. such a long spikes. Can you everyone appreciate such a long spikes here? Compare it with your endophthalmitis, small spikes. Okay, and here you are seeing larger spikes. Give me a thumbs up, everyone, if you are able to understand. So a calcification or a mass would give higher spikes as compared to a vitreous exudates. Okay, so that is how you can differentiate. This is a patient of a endophthalmitis. This patient may have a vitreous hemorrhage as well. Okay, so how to differentiate endophthalmitis and vitreous hemorrhage? You must be having some clinical hints also, because in endophthalmitis you may have redness, pain, watering of the eye, but not of them in vitreous hemorrhage. Okay, now this is a picture where you can see membranes attached to your optic nerve head. Okay, this patient may have a retinal detachment, a chronic retinal detachment, where the membranes are attached to your optic nerve head. So very good, Dr. Bhai. This may be a tractional retinal detachment, or as Chehak told, it can be a funnel shaped. Okay, now the question is why it cannot be a vitreous band. So I would just show you how a vitreous band type looks like. So as Naveen told, it can be a PHPV, but a PHPV usually does not look like this. In PHPV, you would have a band like this. Okay, and this band would be having one fibrotic structure, which is from the posterior surface of the lens and up to the optic nerve head. Remember, here it was like this. Can you appreciate, Chehek? Okay, so yes, it can be a fibrotic tractional band, but a fibrotic tractional band at optic nerve head is not so much common. Okay, so this is how you can have a PHPV, and this is more commonly a tractional retinal detachment or a funnel shaped retinal detachment. Are you getting my point, Dr. Naveen? Okay, okay, this is your PHPV. I call it persistent hyperplastic primary vitreous. Okay, no, it is not as a vitromacular traction. Vitromacular traction is at the level of macula. That is basically causing the distortion of architecture of macula. It is not such a big fibrotic strand. Okay, it is a very mild, may not be picked on just preliminary ultrasound also. Okay, Avinash? Okay, this is how you are seeing two bands. You would ask, sir, this can also be a tractional retinal detachment, but answer is no. This is not a tractional retinal detachment. See, the choroidals here are like this. Okay, can you appreciate? The shape is like this. I can call it kissing choroidals. So this is not retina, this is the choroidal bands, and they are kissing to each other. Are you able to get my point, Shikhar, Chehek, Avinash? So sometimes what happens is, after a glaucoma surgery, like a trabeculectomy surgery, your pressures are decreased so much that there is exudation, massive exudation from your choroidals, okay, from your choroidal arteries. So this is the serous exudation which has covered, or which is beneath the choroid. Okay, it is making the choroid to go forward, and it is now touching each other, the superior and the inferior choroid. This is a kissing choroidal. So see here, this is a kissing choroidal, and this is a tractional retinal detachment. Is it clear, everyone? Give me a thumbs up. Any doubts here till now? Now I would show you. So no, Chehek, it is because of the exudation from your choroidal arteries because of low pressure. Okay. Okay. So let's move to the next question. A patient presented. I just move my face from here. Okay. Now is the options visible to all of you? Okay. patient presented 2 years post cataract surgery with gradual blurring of vision with following clinical picture. Not true regarding this condition. So the answer here is B. Now, first of all, can anyone tell me what is this condition called? You have a hint. 2-year post cataract surgery, gradual blurring of vision here. So very good, Dr. Naveen, Dr. Raj, Dr. Chahek. This patient is suffering from after cataract. Okay, or he is suffering from a posterior capsular opacification. So this is the intraocular lens. Can you all see here the edges? This is the optic of the intraocular lens. And if I just zoom in, can you see the vacuolated areas? Various vacuolated areas. So this is basically the opacification of your posterior capsule. The lenses, some cells which are near the equator, they migrate and get deposited here. Okay, what are these called? These are called Elshing pearls. Okay, honey, these are called Elshing pearls. If you get a capsular ring, then we call it Sommering ring. Okay, these are Elshing pearls. Okay, so option D is also correct here. Now remember, these type of posterior capsular opacification, it is more common in the PMMA lenses or the hard lenses. So we have the hard lenses which are called polymethyl methacrylate. You can just remember it like PM is hard. Okay, your prime minister is something which is a tough character. Okay, so PM is hard. These are the hard IOLs, and you have the soft IOLs which are made up of acrylic. Why we call it soft? Because they can fold. Okay, so because they can fold, and then we can insert it with a 2.5 mm or 2.8 mm incision. Okay, so remember the posterior capsular opacification, that incidence is more in a PMMA lens as compared to the acrylic lenses. Is it clear, everyone? Okay, now how we can treat this patients? To treat this patient, what I do is that I basically just remove the posterior capsule. Okay, I just make the hole in the posterior capsule. And how I make a hole? I can make this hole by the help of a laser which is single frequency ND YAG laser. Okay, so please see, if anyone has not seen my lecture on the lasers in ophthalmology. Okay, please see it, lasers in ophthalmology, where you would get more detail about how and where are the different types of laser. Do not confuse it with a double frequency ND YAG laser. Can anyone tell me where we use a double frequency ND YAG laser? So double frequency ND YAG laser, I use it in pan-retinal photocoagulation. Where I do pan-retinal photocoagulation, I do it in proliferative diabetic retinopathy. ND YAG laser I use for making a capsulotomy, okay, or making a hole in the iris. Okay, that is called iridotomy. Okay, capsulotomy and iridotomy I use ND YAG laser, and double frequency ND YAG laser I use it for PRP. So my answer here is B. Give me a thumbs up, everyone, if you are able to understand. Okay. Beauty, normally we do not use ND YAG laser for meibomian gland blepharitis. Okay, because it can cause photo disruption, it can cause a lot of bleeding. I do not use it. Okay. Let's move to the next question. Okay, the next question is regarding the chart here. So what is this chart called? Your options are: used to detect red-green color blindness, color blindness is more common in males, important criteria for driving license, patient with cataract has impaired response to Ishira chart. Which of the following is not a true statement? So So the answer here is D. Now, what is this chart called? This chart is called Ishira chart. Ishira chart is a specific chart which is used for detecting a red-green color blindness. Okay, so your option A, red-green color blindness, that is absolutely correct. Okay, remember this color blindness gene, it is more there in your which chromosome? It is more there in your X chromosome. Okay, so this patient, usually the patients of color blindness are male because they have XY chromosome. Okay, and the females may be the carriers of the disease. So option B, that is absolutely correct. In India, the driving license requires the patient should not be suffering from any type of color blindness. Okay, remember, for post graduation in any of the medical subjects, color blindness is not considered as a diagnostic criteria. Okay, but I would always suggest that those friends who are having a color blindness, they should not go for a surgical branches or the branches where there is more use of the microscope, because the patient because the person may get some difficulty to appreciate the reds and the greens. Okay, now remember, the patient who is having cataract or those patients who are having corneal opacity, these patient does not have a impaired response to the Ishira chart. Okay, so which patients have impaired response to the Ishira chart? The patients who are suffering from any optic nerve head disorders. Okay, very good, Dr. Raj. The patients who are suffering from any optic nerve head disorders, they are basically having more of a problem with the Ishira chart. The second thing you have to remember is one drug can also cause the problem in the red green color. So what is the drug? It is, as you all know, ethambutol. Okay, it is the ethambutol which can cause a red green color blindness. Okay, so the next question is: a patient with rheumatoid arthritis presented with the foreign body sensation in the eye. A test is going on in this patient. What is the probable diagnosis here? So try to answer. Avinash, Dr. Beauty, because I am going with questions, I may not be getting your queries here. I think one question was regarding the dry. Are you dry heat therapy? Are you asking about warm compresses? So basically, what you do is warm compresses. You put warm compresses here. Okay, tell the patient to basically after 10 minutes, you have to massage your eyes like this. Okay, this is called the warm compresses. Or you are asking about the pulse therapy for dry eye. Okay, so the answer here is D. Now the question is, in this picture, can you appreciate what is the test which is going on? Okay, so very good. This is a Sharma test which is going on, and this strip is called Whatman paper 41 strip. Okay, this strip is called Whatman paper 41 strip. Here you are getting more hints here that the patient is suffering from rheumatoid arthritis. So a rheumatoid arthritis patient is more prone to develop scleritis, episcleritis, and dry eye. Okay, so the answer here is dry eye. Remember, you can say that, sir, nasolacrimal duct obstruction can also have more watering. But remember, the patient, NLDO patient, is having the complaints of epiphora. Okay, epiphora we do not diagnose with the Schirmer's gland. Okay, so that's why this patient is basically having a dry eye, and where we have to use a Schirmer strip. Okay, so xerophthalmia is something which is a vitamin A deficiency. Okay, in vitamin A deficiency you see about the primary signs, like you see corneal xerosis, you see conjunctival xerosis, and you do not just go for a dry eye there. Okay, and the specific hint that is given here was the rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, see, very clearly they are asking about a rheumatoid arthritis, and this gentleman, you can see he is more elderly group aged. Okay, vitamin A deficiency is not very much common in this age group of the patient. Okay, so I won't go for a xerophthalmia, but better I would go with the dry eye in this patient. Okay, okay, so let's move to, this is what a Schirmer strip which I have made the Harrow. Okay, so let's move to the next question. Mark the false statement regarding this procedure. Image formed is erect and virtual, used for seeing the optic nerve head, can be seen through a hazy media, and direct ophthalmoscopy is the name of the procedure. Avinash, there was one question regarding hypertensive retinopathy. So up to mild, moderate hypertensive retinopathy, which is the new Keith Wagner classification, we do not have a color vision deficiency there. But definitely when you have a malignant hypertension, you have a disc edema, you may have a color vision problem. But at that point of time, your main aim is to save the life of the patient and not to worry too much about the color vision there. Okay, I cannot get your next question. You can just send it to me personally also. I have got few more questions if I can see here. Okay, so let's move to this question first. So what is this investigation going on? So what is this? This is a direct ophthalmoscope which I am using. So see how I do a direct ophthalmoscopy. The direct ophthalmoscopy is in my right hand, and with my right hand I go in very close to the right eye of the patient. Okay, that is the way to do a direct ophthalmoscopy. Sometimes from even a 25 centimeter distance, I can move the light of the direct ophthalmoscope and see if there is a position of change in the lenticular opacity or a corneal opacity. Through a distant direct ophthalmoscopy, I can tell whether the opacity is in front of the nodal point of the eye or at the back of the nodal point of the eye. Okay, so remember, Dr. Beauty, your question is, for this we require cycloplegia. So remember, if you are doing a retinoscopy, you require a cycloplegia. But for doing a direct ophthalmoscopy, you always do not require a cycloplegia unless otherwise your pupil is so small that the light is not able to go past through it. 99% of the times, whenever I use a direct ophthalmoscope, I use it in the patients who are not being dilated. When the patient is being dilated, I use a indirect ophthalmoscopy there. Okay, so cycloplegic is not required for direct ophthalmoscopy or doing a slit lamp examination with 90D. If you get a cycloplegia, that is well and good. But if you are not having the cycloplegia, still you can go for a direct ophthalmoscopy. Okay, Dr. Beauty? Okay. So the next thing is, remember the mnemonic DAVE. So a direct ophthalmoscopy is having a erect and virtual image. Okay, why we use a direct ophthalmoscopy? Because we have to see the optic nerve head and the macula. Okay, that is basically considered as the posterior pole. So this is used in the optic nerve head and macular disorders. Okay, remember, to see through hazy media and peripheral retina, you do not use a direct ophthalmoscopy. You need another instrument. Can anyone tell me what is the other instrument? Very good, Dr. Raj. We need this instrument for that, which is called indirect ophthalmoscopy. Okay, so this is the indirect ophthalmoscopy. This is the direct ophthalmoscopy. Remember, for the indirect ophthalmoscopy, I need, Dr. Beauty, a cycloplegia there. Okay, for a direct ophthalmoscopy, I do not need a cycloplegia. Where I need a indirect, it is still 11 p.m. Dr. Reddy, it is still 11 p.m. So indirect ophthalmoscopy, the main use is whenever I have to see a peripheral retina. Okay, and the second main use here is even in the patients who have, as Chehak told us, hazy media. Okay, the patient is having synchiasis scintillans, asteroid hyalosis, or the patient is having mild corneal haze. In that cases also, the indirect ophthalmoscope is a very useful identity. Okay, so it is the investigation of choice for retinal detachment, lattice degenerations, and even for the ROPs. Okay, retinopathy of prematurity. Okay, so let's move to our next question. The patient presented with this type of clinical picture. Patient does not have any history of inflammation. The visual acuity is 6/9. What is your probable diagnosis? So try to answer. So Dr. Beauty, for a glaucomatous damage, as a glaucoma surgeon, I would basically go more with a slit lamp biomicroscopy with a 90D lens. The reason is that with the slit lamp biomicroscopy, I get the stereopsis also. With the direct ophthalmoscopy, I do not get a more good stereopsis. And with a slit lamp biomicroscopy and a 90D or Ruby lens, I get better picture even from a hazy media. Okay, so I, at my level, yes, I would go with a slit lamp with the 90D evaluation. But as you are a UG or a MBBS students, if that is asked in your viva, you can definitely go for a direct ophthalmoscopy. Okay, so the answer here is C, that is granular dystrophy. Now, what are the hints given in this patient? The hints, very important hint is, the patient does not have any history of inflammation. Okay, because the patient does not have any history of inflammation, so option B and option D are basically ruled out. Is it clear, everyone? Give me a thumbs up. Ready? Okay, now the options that are left is a Cogan map print dot dystrophy and granular dystrophy. A Cogan map print dot dystrophy, a corneal dystrophy, which is a epithelial dystrophy. So whenever the patient is having a Cogan map print dot dystrophy, the patient would have epithelial defects. Okay, so how the patient would come? Patient would come with lot of watering, haziness, and patient says that, sir, I am having lot of pain in the eye because the cornea is something which has a lot of sensation. Okay, there is the patient who comes and he is having just problem with the vision, blurry vision, and he has okay vision. So this patient is suffering from granular dystrophy. Are you able to understand my point? Cogan map print dot dystrophy would not present like that. A granular dystrophy can definitely present like that. Now, what are the important things that you have to understand here? Whenever we talk about a granular dystrophy, and another option that can be given here is a macular dystrophy. Now, both granular as well as macular dystrophy, they are a stromal dystrophy. But a granular dystrophy would come with the vision of 6/9, 6/12. A macular dystrophy would come with the vision of 1/60 or 2/60. Okay, so more severe. In granular dystrophy, you have opacities, and in between, Dr. Beauty, the opacities, the area is clear. But in the patients who are suffering from macular dystrophy, you have opacities, and in between the opacities, this area is also haziness. Okay, so this patient is having, I just want to increase the time of class by 2 or 3 minutes. Can I do it right now? I just want to finish this chapter. Okay, so this patient is having more of haziness. So what is happening is the patient has a lot of diminution of vision, a granular dystrophy, the in between area that is clear. So that's why it is a granular dystrophy, and even if the option was macular dystrophy, you should not go with that. Is it clear? So thank you very much for attending this session. Because many of the students joined late, I would be having a short revision of so check for Cogan map print dot dystrophy, there would not be the opacities, there would be frank epithelial defects. If you'd stain with the fluorescein, you would get frank epithelial defects there. Okay, so I would be just so foveal reflex lost in macular macular dystrophy. Definitely, Dr. Beauty, they are lost in macular dystrophy. Okay, so I am just so in Dr. Avni, what happens is silicone oil comes in the anterior chamber, okay, and this silicone oil can attract the calcium crystals. So for those students who joined late, I am doing a very fast revision of the various questions that we have done till now. Okay, so you can subscribe with my code Dr. Vineet 10. That is not the point. Let's see the various questions. It is the fastest finger first. Try to answer. So what is this condition patient suffering from? So very good, Shikhar. It is macular hole, where you are having the hole in the, or you are having missing layers in the center of macula. Okay, you would have a blunt reflex, Dr. Beauty, here. Let's move to the next question. Okay, a 25-year-old patient came to the OPD with central diminution of vision. What is the diagnosis here? So I am doing a fast revision of the questions that we have done. So those students who joined late can also have an idea. Dull reflex. Check, blunt means dull reflex. So this patient is having a central serous retinopathy. Okay, you are seeing a foveal detachment here. Okay, so the next question was, a 65-year-old patient came to the OPD with following OCT picture. What is this patient suffering from? You are seeing RP elevation. So very good, everyone. This is a patient of ARMD. Okay, let's move to the next question. A patient presented with following disc picture with intraocular pressure of 23 millimeter. What is not true? So if you have any doubt, Mona, macula by seeing can we differentiate, or only by? No, by seeing you would say that in granular dystrophy you can see areas, clear areas between the opacity. In macular dystrophy you cannot see clear areas between the opacity. Okay, so the answer here is C. Let's move to the next question. Not okay, this was something mistake in the options. Let's move to this question. Post cataract surgery, patient presented with pain and redness and USG picture like this. What is not true regarding this situation? Okay, so yes, it is not the oral steroids drug of choice. This is the intravitreal antibiotics that we use in these patients. Okay, let's move to the next question. Okay, just tell me, what is this picture I have shown? A patient of after a trabeculectomy surgery, the patient has come with this picture. What is this picture showing in the ultrasound? So very good, it is the picture of kissing choroidals. Okay, let's move to the next question. A patient 2 years post cataract surgery presented with gradual blurring of vision. Which of the following is not true regarding this condition? So very good, Vishal Himani. It is the fastest finger first we are doing. It is not the double frequency Nd:YAG, but the single frequency Nd:YAG that is used for posterior capsular opacification. Okay, so not a true statement regarding kissing, not something, it is choroidals. Okay, so not a true statement regarding this. So patient with cataract has impaired response to vision chart. This is wrong. Okay. So let's move to the next question. A patient with rheumatoid arthritis presented with the following picture. What is your probable diagnosis? So it is dry eye. Perfect. Let's move to the next question. Mark the false statement regarding the procedure that is going on. Is the pole visible? Okay. So we have absolutely, it cannot see through the hazy media. You need a indirect ophthalmoscopy. Okay. So the last question was this one. So what is your diagnosis here? So absolutely, this was a patient of granular dystrophy. So thank you very much for attending this image-based clinical scenarios clinical scenarios topic. Hope you would have liked it. And before I end the session, I would just request you that whatever you want in ophthalmology in this month, January, I have a lot of Aisha, tomorrow and day after tomorrow, I would be in Srinagar for seeing the patients there. So I won't be able to get the class there. But friends, if you have damn any doubt in ophthalmology, you can ask me. Okay, whenever I have time, I would post it. But don't send it to me personally. Please put it in the relevant groups. So before I end the session, you can subscribe on the Plus or Iconic subscription with my code, that is Dr. Vineet 10. Okay, you have a lot of choices. Please subscribe for our channel on the YouTube. Let's Crack NEET PGME. Thank you very much for attending this session. Good night and Jai Hind. And before I end the session, please write in the comment section whatever you want in ophthalmology from me. Till then, good night and Jai Hind.